This is the 5-minute sample for King's Criminals, The Kings of Men MC Book 3, by Ki Brightly and M.D. Gregory. This is my 22nd audiobook, and it was released on April 23rd, 2020. Well, I guess this audiobook is my Shawshank Redemption. I quote-unquote borrowed a lot of voices for this production from Batman, Bishop's the Penguin, specifically based on the Penguin from the Arkham games, and two of the thugs who accost Charlie in the showers are Joker and Scarecrow. As always, I try to hold back on the impressions so they don't sound too silly, because these romances have a touch of realism to them that make them more serious than outright comical. But if you do give this title a listen and you're aware of the origin characters, then you'll probably be able to sniff out the inspiration. Bishop being based on the Penguin became especially hilarious when he got his own book in the series King's Pawn, which I'll cover in a few days. I'd occasionally stop myself and say, "Mr. Wayne," in his voice, just to make sure I wasn't losing it. Now for the book. I thought the plot in this one was a bit meandering. Isn't it ironic how books primarily centralized in one location, in this case a prison, can be so prone to having unfocused plots? You would assume that because of the limited space to work with, the story would be forced to be the driving force to compensate, but this is often not the case. Rather, the closed-off nature of the setting can compel the plot to be closed off as well, leading to disparate plot points occurring without much circumstance behind them, and plot distractions, which are moments that detract from the narrative but don't add much to the story. This book isn't completely full of these moments, but they did occur often enough and close enough story-wise that I just wanted Scar and Charlie to get the heck out of the undeveloped prison and live their lives. This wasn't a bad title by any means, but writing a novel contained in one place can be very difficult, and I think this series lends itself more to the free-roaming biker aspect rather than the closed-off prisoner aspect. Case in point, in one scene, Charlie opines for the freedom of the open road, and, as a reader, I couldn't help but feel the same way. But about the story itself. All that being said, I hope you enjoy this 5-minute sample. Chapter 1. Charley Hughes. No less than 1 year, and no more than 2. Time served will count, leaving the sentence at roughly 6 months to 1.5 years. Judge Tamaki had the nerve to look bored as he stared down at the papers in his hand. He scratched at his rounded chin, and then the paunchy bastard yawned. Son of a... I shook River Demchenko's arm and tried not to look like I was falling apart, especially since my baby brother, Travis, and his little peach of a boyfriend, Mackenzie, were sitting right behind me. I knew Trav inside and out. His attention would be glued to me, looking for direction. There was no way I could lose my mind like I wanted to. I'd gotten on a first-name basis with my lawyer since it had taken almost 7 months to get us inside this stuffy courtroom, with its soundproofed, blue-carpeted walls and hard plastic chairs stuck behind flimsy fold-out tables. Today, River had on a slick black suit that screamed money, and he liked to go out riding with us on a streamlined, customized black Hayabusa that did the same. But he was no member of the Kings of Men Motorcycle Club, only an associate. I never did feel like he cared enough about my case. "You said I'd get out." River shoved his fancy gold-rimmed glasses up his nose and leaned closer to me. He smelled good, like the woods during a rainstorm, and his smooth jaw with only a hint of fresh stubble held my focus for a second. He was all hard, masculine angles, clean lines, and bright eyes. Nothing like the guys in jail. "I said he might only give you 6 months, which would mean you were out sooner, but that arson charge stuck. I didn't expect that. I'm sorry. I told you a walk out of county wasn't a guarantee. It's not bad. You've got a chance at doing fast time." He rested a hand on mine where I was giving my own thigh a bruise. "You'll be fine. King has someone to look out for you." "Are we done, counsel? I'm not used to my sentencing being so rudely interrupted." We both sat up straight, and River turned to face the judge with his hands clasped on top of the table. I could see he was amused, though, by the crinkles at the corners of his eyes. Judge Tamaki cleared his throat and leaned closer to the microphone in front of him, a weird thing to do, because we were only about 4 feet away from his raised desk. Judge Tamaki didn't start speaking until I met his sad brown eyes, making me feel like I was about 10 and seated in the principal's office. "I'm sending you to medium security, against my better judgment." I squirmed when he pinned me in place with his quick gaze. "Trident Falls Correctional has a very good GED and college credits program, and I looked over your record, Mr. Hughes." Judge Tamaki glared harder, and I sank farther down into my seat. "You're young. You've collected some unsavory associates. I suggest you take advantage of the programs and straighten out your life. If I see you here again, I will not be lenient." Judge Tamaki didn't bang the gavel the way I imagined he would. I mean, this wasn't even what I thought of as a real courtroom after years of watching Law and Order reruns. Instead, he just sort of waved his hand at everyone there, and picked up another piece of paper on his desk with a sigh. "Bailiff, bring in the next case. Remand Mr. Hughes to custody." "Wait, what?" I asked, frantically checking around. "It's over?" Everything seemed like it was happening too fast. River stood and already had his phone out, playing around on it. I swiveled around to see the Kings, and Trav and Mackenzie were already on their feet. There were quite a few old ladies back there wearing their men's cuts, so someone must have thought that a club show was a good idea. Tinker was there too, but he wavered on his feet like maybe he'd been drinking. Hunter, who seemed to be turning into King's personal gopher, had shown. He hadn't dressed up and was covered head to toe in grunge. Even his blonde hair had grease smeared in it. He handed something to River, who nodded and whispered back to him. Seeing Hunter here, in the light of day among regular Joes, made it clear how crazy young he was, and the King's wasn't even his first club. I tried to stand, but ended up falling down hard onto my chair when my legs wouldn't hold me. River hunkered down beside me, resting his elbow on his knee and his chin on his palm, staring up into my face. His lack of emotion for what was happening made me hate him even more. "I can't. I ain't made for this prison The idea of being off my baby, my Honda CBR, for any longer had my entire body shriveling in on itself. I wanted the wind. I wanted the road under my tires, and the freedom to ride until I hit the Pacific. Not that I'd ever gone that far. But what if I wanted to? I couldn't. I was stuck. A link to purchase King's Criminals is in the description below. This title was a royalty share production, so I make 20% from any purchases. Thanks for listening!